3 tiger cubs feed on a kill. A rare sight, even in the strictly protected Royal Chitwan National Park in the Kingdom of Nepal, where these cubs live. But in a year or two's time, they'll be fully grown. Then they may have to leave the safety of the park and seek their fortunes in less idyllic surroundings outside. Chuck McDougall on the right and Dave Smith are 2 scientists studying the tigers of Chitwan. But the methods they use are very different.
Is on the left front.
They're learning a great deal about the behavior of the tigers in the park. Their joint efforts are aimed at safeguarding the futures of cubs like these. Chitwan National Park lies just inside Nepal's southern border with India. The Nepalese government has recently extended the total area of the park to 360 square miles. Chitwan is in the Terai, the area of jungle and grassland below the Himalayan foothills. It's one of the last unspoiled wildlife areas, principally because the whole of the Chitwan Valley was once part of a royal hunting reserve. Today, the park is an isolated remnant of that once large hunting area, but it still retains much of the natural grandeur and great variety of wildlife of former times. Unlike many of the reserves in the Indian subcontinent, Chitwan has a healthy population of tigers. It's prime tiger country, containing up to 40 animals. Chuck McDougall used to hunt tigers, but for several years now he's lived in Chitwan, employing his old hunting skills to find out more about the movements and behavior of the park's tigers. He knows all the tigers in his study area at the western end of the park, and he's been able to record the life histories of many of the tigers born in the area since his work commenced. The tiger is a shy and elusive animal, and because of man's persecution, it's chiefly nocturnal. So its movements are extremely difficult to follow. This is where Chuck uses his fieldcraft. Tigers leave obvious footprints or pug marks. The shape and size of the pugs vary with each individual tiger, and also with its age and sex. To Chuck, they're as distinctive as fingerprints to a criminologist. He now has all his regular tigers on file. The width of the pad and the spacing and shape of the toes are their characteristics which he uses to identify the owner of each set of prints. By following the pug marks of known tigers, he's able to plot their movements through the forest, even without seeing the tigers themselves. But tigers leave other signs. Here, Chuck and Nepalese tracker Sakali Gurung have found a place where a tiger has scraped a bare patch with its hind feet on the forest floor, and then deposited scent there. Scrape marks are often found by the side of the regular trails which tigers use as they move through the forest.
Malabali, the western male. These tracks look about a day old. Here's a scrape mark.
A tiger has sprayed scent on a tree in the same way as a dog uses a lamppost. The scent is strong, even to a human nose, and the pungent odour may linger for several weeks. After scent marking the tree, the tiger often rears up and rubs its face on the bark. This impregnates the scent on the tree and on the tiger itself. Tigers in the park show a marked preference for scent marking the underside of leaning trees. Scientists have yet to discover why this should be.
What do you think, Buckley?
Each tiger normally occupies a large area of jungle, its exclusive territory. Scrapes and scent marking are the tiger's way of advertising its presence to other tigers in the area and announcing that this particular stretch of forest is occupied.
Mark here. It looks like a large animal.
But some signs are less subtle and are obvious even to the untrained eye. The tiger has killed a large animal, and the flattened grass bears witness to the struggle. After feeding, the tiger has dragged the remains into thicker cover. It'll probably return later to take a second meal from the kill. It's an adult sambar stag. For the tiger to drag the stag 200 or 300 yards is no mean feat, when you consider that the stag weighs around 600 pounds and the tiger may be half that weight. Though their investigations involve the use of different techniques, Dave, Chuck and their Nepalese trackers work closely together. They examine the tiger's kill, noting the puncture marks of the powerful canine teeth in the stag's throat. To match the prints he knew so well with their owners, Chuck needed identification photographs. So he set up a flash gun and camera on a trail regularly used by tigers. He planned to let them take their own nighttime portraits. The camera and flash units had to be carefully camouflaged. On the trail, buried beneath the sand, he positioned a pressure release plate. When an animal stepped on the plate, it would release the camera shutter and flash simultaneously and take its own photograph. The test picture was a self-portrait. The first success was a leopard, then a civet cat, and finally the tigers. This is Mahila Bale, a male tiger Chuck has known since cubhood, caught in mid-stride in the pitch dark of the jungle at night. In the comparative safety of the park, the tigers sometimes forsake their nocturnal habits and show themselves in daylight, chiefly in the early morning and late afternoon. To watch them, Chuck uses a hide set up where a tiger has made a kill. If undisturbed, a tiger will return to its kill several times, often until every scrap of meat has been eaten. He had the night pictures of Mahila Bale. Now he had the opportunity to observe him at close quarters and in good light as he returned to take another meal from the kill. Another visitor was Bangi, the mother of the now fully grown Mahila Bale. Her name means crooked and refers to the shape of her pugs caused by the oddly spaced toes of a forefoot. She has a new litter, one of which approaches cautiously. Bangi's new litter of cubs is about 6 months old. Though they feed avidly from the kill, they're still totally dependent on their mother to find and kill their food for them. Not until they're nearly 2 years old will they be ready to fend for themselves. All the skills of hunting must be learned from their mother, and then gradually the family will break up as the cubs move away to live more solitary lives. From watching the development of several litters, Chuck found a distinct pattern emerging. As the cubs reach independence, they move away from the area of their birth. Sometimes Chuck sees these newly independent tigers in other parts of the park, but several have disappeared from his study area entirely. He began to think that many of the young tigers left the park, perhaps for good. When everybody's had enough to eat, it's time to move off for a good sleep to digest the meal. Two of the cubs amble down to the stream to take a drink on the way. The tigress is much more cautious, perhaps because she has young cubs with her. But in Chuck's experience, Bangi is a particularly shy tigress anyway, and one seldom seen in daylight. Another family travel along the same route taken by the tigers. The smooth otters are not convinced that the coast is clear, and the cubs stay close to their parents. Their caution is justified. One of the tiger cubs has stayed behind at the kill site, perhaps to taste a brief moment of early independence from the rest of the family. Though the cub probably wouldn't give them a second glance, the otters are not keen to meet any tiger. But after another reconnaissance, the parents decide it's safe to continue their journey along the stream. Not all the tigers which Chuck sees are known to him personally. This young male enjoying a cooler in the stream is not a resident in the western part of the park, but a stranger from elsewhere, perhaps just passing through. He gives Chuck a good chance to meet him at close quarters and also to see that he's wearing a collar. How and why he got the collar, we'll find out in a minute. Dawn in Royal Chittawan National Park. As the sun climbs above the trees, the valley is bathed in mist and at its most beautiful. Through the mist looms an elephant, striding ghost-like through the chilly fog of early morning. On her back, the elephant carries 3 men out looking for tigers.
Let's circle around to the left.
Dave Smith from the University of Minnesota is working for the Tiger Ecology Project in Nepal. His speciality, radio tracking the tigers of Chittawan to follow their movements both in and outside the park. You have to be up early to follow tigers, in this case, a tiger already fitted with a radio collar. This gives out a signal picked up by the aerial carried aboard the elephant.
This is about the same location we got him late yesterday.
There's always something to be seen from elephant back. It's like watching from a moving hide. A pack of wild dogs or dolis play on an open forest track. They don't realize that the elephant is carrying that potential enemy, man, on her back. The elephant is unworried by the dogs. They're fierce and ruthless hunters of smaller game. Even the lordly tiger holds them in respect. Sadly, they seem to be getting rarer and are only occasionally seen within the boundaries of the park. As the forest warms up, the tiger will seek out a shady patch of dense cover in which to rest during the heat of the day. But the signal from the collar it's wearing betrays the tiger's resting place. Dave climbs a tree in order to get a bearing on the tiger's exact position. For the elephants, it's a chance to take a few mouthfuls of well-earned breakfast. And elephants make willing stepladders. Those pug marks tell Dave and chief tracker Prem Bahadur Rai that the tiger has passed this way.
Eastern limit of 107's territory.
The tracks are fresh and the imprint of each toe shows clearly. The tiger was evidently moving along this riverbed while Dave and Prem were receiving its signals from the back of the elephant.
This 107 is just a little bit ahead of us.
Even though they rely largely on radio tracking, pug marks are still important and tell Dave and Prem much about the movements of individual tigers. Prem's expertise in tracking tigers on the ground stems from the days when he was a Royal Nepalese shikari, or hunter. By following and plotting the movements of tigers over several years, the Tiger Ecology Project has found that the female tigers each have a clearly defined territory, up to 10 square miles in extent, where other tigresses are usually unwelcome. The area of forest used by several tigresses is also shared by a resident adult male tiger. His territory, up to 40 square miles in size, includes those of one or more tigresses whose cubs he will father. It became clear why some of the younger tigers had to move away from the park to find vacant territories in which to live. To follow the movements of the tigers, Dave fits them with radio collars. But before you can do that, you must first catch your tiger, using an anesthetic dart fired at close range. The tiger he's after is wearing a radio collar which has ceased to work. Now it needs to be replaced. For the moment, scientist must turn hunter. Dave selects a suitable tree from which he hopes to dart the tiger when Prem and his team of beaters drive it within range. The elephant departs, leaving Dave to find a comfortable position for his weight and from which he can watch the place where he expects the tiger to break from cover. Meanwhile, Prem and his helpers lay out a white cloth barrier right around the area in which the tiger is lying up. It's an old method developed in Nepal and used in the great tiger hunts of the past. Now it's playing its part in helping to conserve tigers. It's called a beat cloth, and its purpose is to prevent the tiger escaping into another part of the forest. Carefully laid, this simple white cloth is quite sufficient to prevent the tiger breaking away when the beaters drive it out. When everything is ready, the beaters drive the tigress in the desired direction. Disturbed by the noise of the beaters, she quietly leaves her resting place to find another, more secluded one. Dave knows that he almost certainly has only one chance of a good shot at the tiger. The dart went home in the shoulder. Now it's important to keep her in view from elephant back until the drug starts to take effect. Within 2 minutes, the drug is beginning to work, and the tigress starts to meander as she moves through the forest. Finally, she lies down. A cautious approach on foot to make sure the drug has taken effect.
All right, let's move her in the shade and get some more water.
The animal is doused with water to ensure that she doesn't become overheated while under the drug's influence. Now the old collar can be removed. The tigress's neck fur hasn't suffered through wearing it.
Not a mark on the fur after 2 years. That's not bad. Yeah, she's in good shape.
She's large for her sex, weighing in at 340 pounds. A new collar is fitted in place of the old one. Each collar has a life of 2 years and is designed to fall off after that time if the wearer hasn't been redarted.
All right, let's get chest girth next. We want to measure chest girth, total length.
Measurements are taken and the overall condition of the tigress noted in detail.
Temperature's still good.
Her temperature is recorded to check that she shows no adverse reaction to the drug. The new collar is tested and an antidote given. All that remains is to see that her recovery is normal. After recovery, tigers frequently return to their last kill for another meal, a sign that they're not unduly disturbed by the experience. Following the movements of tigers over large areas proved impossible from elephant back. United Nations Development Project offered the use of a light aircraft from which collared tigers could be tracked outside the park. These are the animals which can't find territories inside the park and are therefore compelled to move away from the safety it offers them. Tracking from an aircraft gives a clear idea of the routes taken by the younger tigers as they move outside the park. It's vital that the forests which still exist along the park's borders are kept intact to provide buffer areas for Chitawana's excess tigers and to act as corridors along which they can travel successfully into other reserves. Chuck McDougall, Dave Smith and the Nepalese wildlife authorities are all working towards a better understanding of how tigers live. This has enabled the Nepalese government to preserve these forest areas and thereby safeguard the future of Chitawana's tigers. When Bangi's cubs grow up, it's highly likely that they'll be forced to look for territories outside the park. Thanks to research and the strong Nepalese stand on conservation, they've now got a far better chance of surviving.